Just when it seemed like the Brown family saga had finally exhausted every possible twist, a new rumor detonated in Flagstaff that made everything before it look like child's play. This wasn't another argument, another tearful confessional, or another awkward family meeting filmed under the Arizona sun. This was something colder, something calculated, something that felt less like reality TV drama and more like a financial assassination attempt. According to multiple whispers circulating through insider circles, Kody Brown may have just played the most desperate card of his entire life, a move designed not to save himself, but to stop Janelle from walking away for good. The report suggests that Kody, watching Janelle plan her future without him, allegedly moved to freeze her finances at the exact moment she was preparing to celebrate her new life. The theory is explosive, a quiet Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing, or at the very least a legal claim of insolvency, timed with surgical precision to lock down Coyote Pass and prevent Janelle from selling her share of the land. The intention, insiders claim, wasn't subtle. It was punishment. If Janelle couldn't access her equity, she couldn't fund the wedding. If she couldn't fund the wedding, she'd be forced back into negotiations, back into his orbit, back under his control. But here's where the story stops being predictable and starts becoming dangerous for Kody. Because the most shocking part of this isn't the alleged bankruptcy maneuver. It's who was watching while Kody thought he was winning. For years, viewers watched the same pattern repeat itself. Kody positioned himself as the patriarch, the provider, the man holding everything together, while behind the scenes the original wives quietly bled money into a system that never rewarded them. Mary poured funds into the family pot and walked away with nothing but distance. Christine exited with her dignity intact but little else. And Janelle, the so-called financial brain of the family, cashed out her retirement, her security, her future, all to build a dream that slowly became Robyn's reality instead of her own. Fans didn't imagine this. They watched it happen. They watched Robyn settle into a mansion while Janelle rented. They watched Coyote Pass sit untouched while debts piled up. They watched Kody lecture about loyalty while relying on the women he later discarded to keep the lights on. And now, just as Janelle finally appeared free, glowing, and unbothered, planning a wedding that had nothing to do with Kody, the ground allegedly shifted beneath her feet. Coyote Pass, that cursed stretch of land that became the physical symbol of everything broken in the Brown family. For seasons, it represented promises that never materialized, futures that were always postponed, and power that Kody refused to relinquish. Janelle wanted out. Cleanly. Legally. She wanted her portion liquidated, so she could move forward without strings, without meetings, without permission. And according to insiders, Kody knew exactly what that meant. If Janelle sold, she'd have cash. And if she had cash, she'd never need him again. That's when the alleged nuclear option came into play. Legal experts familiar with similar cases say that when insolvency claims or bankruptcy protections are triggered, everything stops. Assets freeze. Transfers halt. Titles can't move. Nothing happens without court oversight. In other words, the perfect legal chokehold. The timing, according to those watching closely, wasn't accidental. Janelle's wedding date was approaching. Vendors needed payment. Plans were in motion. And suddenly, the one asset that could secure her total independence was locked in place. The theory making the rounds is chilling in its simplicity. Kody wasn't thinking about long-term consequences. He wasn't thinking about credit damage or public embarrassment. He was thinking about control. One last time. If he could make Janelle panic, make her pick up the phone, make her ask for cooperation, even just once, he'd still be the gatekeeper. The man between her and happiness. The power play wasn't about money. It was about dominance. This is where many fans say the mask finally slipped. Because this wasn't a move made out of necessity. This was a move made out of spite. And people who've lived through financial abuse recognized it instantly. The pattern is always the same. When emotional control fails, financial control becomes the weapon. If I can't have you, I'll ruin you. If you leave with nothing. Kody likely believed the pressure would be unbearable. That Janelle would be forced to downgrade her wedding. that she'd be humiliated, that the independence she'd been radiating would suddenly collapse into stress and compromise. He was operating on old data, on the version of Janelle who tried to keep the peace, who sacrificed for the family, who absorbed loss so others could stay comfortable. But that woman no longer exists. The Janelle standing at the edge of this moment wasn't alone. And that may have been Kody's fatal miscalculation. Because while he was busy locking down land and accounts, something else was happening quietly, something he didn't see, didn't anticipate, and wouldn't understand until it was far too late. Janelle had already disclosed everything. The debt, the land, the risk, the history, and the man she was about to marry wasn't just listening. He was calculating. Whispers began circulating in online forums, legal threads, and private message boards, the places where reality TV fans turn into detectives. The debt situation surrounding Coyote Pass wasn't small. Unpaid taxes, loans, credit obligations, a lifestyle that no longer matched the income stream supporting it. Robyn didn't work. A nanny was still employed. Shopping habits were well documented. The TLC checks had shrunk. The math wasn't matching. And in the world of high finance, debt is never just a problem. It's an opportunity. Here's where the story takes its sharpest turn. When debt becomes distressed, when payments falter and liens pile up, it becomes something that can be bought. Banks sell it. Counties offload it. And usually faceless firms step in to collect. But sometimes someone with a personal interest makes a move. Quietly. Strategically. Through layers of separation. According to the theory now setting the internet on fire, Janelle's fiancé didn't rush to confront Kody. He didn't threaten. He didn't posture. He did something far more devastating. He allegedly bought the debt. Not with fanfare. Not with an announcement. But through an LLC with a name so generic Kody would never suspect a thing. One signature. One transaction. One shift of ownership. And just like that, the power dynamic flipped completely. The man Kody thought he was freezing out was now holding the note. Imagine the moment the realization hits. Kody opens a letter. A standard notice. Debt transfer. New creditor. Nothing unusual. He barely reads it. But somewhere in a boardroom far removed from Flagstaff, a different reality is being set in stone. The man marrying his ex-wife now owns the ground beneath his feet. And Kody doesn't know it yet. That's where we pause, because what happens next doesn't just change the wedding. It changes everything. While Kody sat in Flagstaff convinced he had finally cornered Janelle, something far more dangerous than panic was unfolding. Silence. No frantic calls. No last-minute negotiations. No emotional breakdown. And in the world of power struggles, silence is never weakness. Silence means someone is preparing a move you can't stop. Kody expected chaos. Instead, he got calm. And that calm should have terrified him. Because while he was busy replaying the same tired strategy he had used for years, pressure, delay, obstruction, Janelle had already stepped into a different world entirely. A world where leverage wasn't emotional. It was financial. Where power didn't come from yelling louder or demanding loyalty, but from understanding exactly how the system works. And the man standing beside her understood that system far better than Kody ever did. For a long time, Janelle's fiancé remained a mystery. No flashy introductions. No reality TV theatrics. Just a quiet presence in the background while Kody ranted about betrayal and respect. But as details began to leak, a clearer picture started to form. This wasn't someone intimidated by debt, liens, or legal complexity. This was someone who spoke the language of assets, liabilities, and acquisition fluently. Someone who didn't see Kody's financial chaos as a threat, but as an opening. Here's the mistake Kody made, and it's a fatal one. He assumed Janelle needed immediate cash to survive. He believed freezing Coyote Pass would cut off her oxygen. But he never stopped to ask the most important question. What if she didn't need the money anymore? What if the land wasn't her lifeline? Just a loose end she wanted tied up on her terms. That assumption is where everything collapsed. Because instead of scrambling to unlock the land, the alleged white knight maneuver kicked into motion. Debt tied to Coyote Pass, tax liens, obligations, possibly even mortgage notes, became negotiable, purchasable, transferable. And while Kody thought he was blocking a sale, papers were being signed that had nothing to do with him. No confrontation, no warning, just ownership quietly changing hands. Think about how devastating that realization would be for someone like Kody, a man who built his identity on being the patriarch, the provider, the final authority, a man who believed land ownership equaled power. Suddenly, the ground beneath him doesn't belong to him in the way he thought it did. Suddenly, his control isn't real. It's conditional. And the cruelest part? He likely didn't even notice at first. Debt transfers happen every day. Notices get mailed. Names change. LLCs appear with vague titles that mean nothing unless you know where to look. And Kody, drowning in his own chaos, probably glanced at the paperwork and tossed it aside. He had bigger concerns. He thought he had already won. Meanwhile, Janelle was planning a wedding that had nothing to do with Coyote Pass. This is where the narrative flips completely. Kody believed the wedding was dependent on land money. But insiders say the wedding was funded independently, deliberately, to ensure no one could touch it. No family pot. No shared accounts. No leverage. The wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was proof of independence. And Kody's bankruptcy tactic didn't ruin the vibe. It exposed him. As the wedding day approached, the energy surrounding Janelle shifted in a way longtime viewers hadn't seen before. There was no stress. No scrambling. No visible fear, just confidence. The kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're protected, and not just emotionally, legally. Guests arrived at a venue that made one thing clear immediately. This was not a compromised event. This was not a scaled-back ceremony. This was not a woman forced to settle. This was abundance. Cascading florals, a polished setting, music swelling through the space. And Janelle, walking into this new chapter looking lighter than she had in years. But the real story wasn't in the decorations. It was in what wasn't there. Kody, Robyn, control. While the ceremony unfolded, a different reality was setting in back in Flagstaff. Because at some point, whether through a lawyer, a bank, or a routine notice, the truth had to surface. The debt was no longer held by a faceless institution. It was held by someone personal. Someone close. Someone unavoidable. Imagine Kody finding out that the man marrying his ex-wife now technically owns the obligation tied to his most prized possession. Imagine realizing that missing a payment doesn't mean a letter from a bank. It means a call from someone who knows exactly who you are, exactly what you've done, and exactly how much leverage they hold. This is where the psychological shift becomes brutal. Kody isn't just losing money. He's losing identity. For years, he dictated where people lived, how resources were shared, and who deserved what. Now, every decision he makes is under the shadow of a creditor who doesn't need his approval, doesn't fear his anger, and doesn't answer to him in any way. And Janelle? She's free. The wedding reception only deepened the irony. Guests weren't just celebrating love, they were celebrating relief. The adult children looked unburdened, lighter, as if a weight that had been crushing them for years had finally been lifted. Conversations buzzed quietly around the room. Whispers, glances, knowing smiles. Everyone knew something had shifted. Then came the toasts. This is where subtlety did more damage than confrontation ever could. No screaming. No accusations. Just carefully chosen words. Speeches about resilience. About partnership. About standing beside someone who supports instead of drains. And then the line. A sentence so perfectly crafted it landed like a thunderclap wrapped in humor. A toast to new beginnings. And to owning the ground you walk on. Laughter followed. But it wasn't random laughter. It was recognition. The kind that comes when everyone understands the subtext. Janelle laughed too. Not nervously. Freely. Because she knew exactly what that line meant. And so did the man standing beside her. While champagne glasses clinked, somewhere miles away, Kody's world was shrinking. Because now the question wasn't whether Janelle could sell her land. The question was whether Kody could keep his. And that question doesn't get answered in public. It gets answered quietly, through missed payments, through deadlines, through clauses buried deep in legal agreements. The wedding wasn't the end of a story. It was the declaration of a new power structure, one where Kody no longer held the keys, one where Robyn's sense of security was suddenly fragile, and one where the man Kody underestimated had positioned himself not as an aggressor, but as the ultimate gatekeeper. And the most terrifying part for Kody? Eviction wasn't even necessary, because what comes next isn't about revenge. It's about containment, and that's far more dangerous. The morning after the wedding wasn't filled with hangovers or leftover cake. It was filled with contracts, phone calls, and strategy. Because while the ceremony marked the emotional beginning of Janelle's new life, the legal beginning had already happened quietly, long before she walked down the aisle. This is the part of the story that most people miss. Power doesn't shift at weddings. Power shifts in boardrooms. And for the first time in decades, Kody Brown wasn't in one of them. The internet immediately jumped to the obvious question. Was this a revenge play? Was Janelle going to evict Kody and Robyn from Coyote Pass? Would she finally do to him what he had spent years threatening to do to everyone else? But those closest to the situation suggest something far more calculated. Because eviction would give Kody exactly what he craves. Victimhood. A microphone. A narrative where he gets to cry about betrayal and persecution. Janelle doesn't need that. She doesn't need spectacle. She needs stability. This is where the concept of containment comes in. When you hold the debt on a property, you don't need to kick someone out to control them. You simply limit their options. You freeze movement. You restrict liquidity. You ensure nothing can be sold, borrowed against, or transferred without your approval. And that kind of control doesn't make headlines. It makes consequences. Kody can't liquidate land to cover bad decisions. He can't refinance to fund another impulsive purchase. He can't quietly sell off a parcel promise to the kids to keep Robyn comfortable. Every escape route he once relied on is gone. For years, the OG three wives feared exactly this scenario. They feared Kody would sell Coyote Pass in pieces to fund a lifestyle that never included them. That the land promised to their children would disappear one transaction at a time, traded for art, jewelry, or another temporary sense of importance. Janelle understood that fear better than anyone. She was the one who always saw the numbers. The one who knew that assets only matter if they're protected. By allowing her husband to step into the role of creditor, she didn't just neutralize Kody. She safeguarded the future. This is where the story becomes less about revenge and more about legacy. Think about the kids. Gabe, Savannah, the memory of Garrison. They were promised that land. They were told it would be their inheritance, their future, their place. And they watched their father let it rot while prioritizing everything else. Buying the debt didn't erase that history, but it stopped it from repeating. No outsider could swoop in and buy the land at auction. No impulsive sale could strip the kids of what was promised to them. The land was finally actually protected. And Kody knows it. That knowledge changes how a man moves through his own house. It changes how he talks, how he argues, how he sleeps at night. Because now every missed payment isn't just a financial inconvenience. It's a threat. One wrong move and the foreclosure process begins. Not loudly, not emotionally, just legally. The eviction clause doesn't need to be used to work. It only needs to exist. Meanwhile, inside Robyn's house, the illusion of safety was cracking. Robyn had always relied on Kody to manage the business side of life. She trusted him when he said everything was under control. She believed that being the legal wife meant security. But legal marriage doesn't protect you from a third-party creditor. And once that reality sets in, panic isn't far behind. Because now the future isn't defined by what Kody wants. It's defined by what the note holder allows. The tension in that house must be suffocating. For the first time, Robyn can't be reassured with words. Loyalty doesn't pay liens. Tears don't stop foreclosure. And Kody, stripped of his authority, has no one left to blame.
Christine is gone.
Janelle is untouchable. The kids are grown. The mirror is the only thing left. This is where TLC enters the picture. Production didn't plan this storyline, but they know gold when they see it. Insiders say cameras captured the fallout in real time. The realization, the denial,
The spin.
Kody trying to frame this as a strategic decision, claiming it was for the family. But the editors have years of footage. They have receipts. And in recent seasons, they've shown they're not interested in protecting his image anymore. This isn't sister wives trying to coexist. This is a hostile corporate takeover disguised as a family feud. Meetings, lawyers, awkward conversations where Kody has to negotiate with someone who doesn't respect his authority. Someone who isn't afraid of him. Someone who doesn't need him. And the most humiliating part? Kody still needs the show. The TLC paycheck that once fueled his control is now the only thing keeping the lights on. And every episode he films, every confessional he records, potentially helps him pay the very person who dismantled his power. It's a feedback loop of humiliation that reality TV couldn't script if it tried. The production team reportedly reworked the entire season around this shift. The narrative isn't about heartbreak anymore. It's about consequence. About watching a man who ruled through control learn what it feels like to be governed by contracts instead of loyalty. The audience doesn't need a villain edit. The situation speaks for itself. And through it all, Janelle stays quiet. That silence is intentional. She doesn't need to explain herself. She doesn't need to justify the move. Everything she did was legal.
Clean. Smart.
And driven by protection, not punishment. She didn't tear anything down. She built a wall around what mattered. The real question now isn't whether Kody will be evicted. It's how long he can survive inside a system that no longer bends to his will. Because the debt doesn't care about his feelings. The land doesn't care about his ego. And the creditor doesn't need to raise his voice. And looming over all of it is the future. Because containment isn't the endgame. It's the setup.
The board is reset.
The pieces are locked in place. And the next move will decide everything. By the time the dust settled, the truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't a temporary setback for Kody Brown. It was a permanent shift in gravity. Everything that once revolved around him now orbited elsewhere, and no amount of anger, denial, or rewriting history could pull it back. The bankruptcy maneuver he allegedly believed would restore control didn't just fail. It exposed the very weakness he spent years hiding behind authority and bluster. Because now the game was being played by people who didn't confuse power with volume. Kody still had land beneath his feet, but it no longer belonged to him in the way he needed it to. Ownership without autonomy is a cage. Every payment date loomed like a countdown. Every decision required restraint. He couldn't sell, couldn't borrow, couldn't maneuver his way out of trouble the way he always had before. The escape hatches were sealed. And the most brutal part was that nothing dramatic needed to happen for the pressure to work. No confrontation. No courtroom showdown. Just time. This is what makes the so-called eviction clause so devastating. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It hangs in the air like a sword that never needs to fall to be effective. Kody now lives under terms he didn't write, answering to a system that doesn't care about his narrative. He spent years demanding obedience from his family. Now compliance is demanded from him.
And Janelle?
She doesn't gloat. She doesn't chase revenge. That's what makes the outcome sting even more. She moved on. She built something stable, something adult, something grounded in mutual respect instead of fear. Her marriage isn't a rebellion. It's a conclusion. The end of one story and the quiet beginning of another. The real genius of the move lies in what it protects, not what it punishes. The land isn't being flipped for profit. It isn't being weaponized for humiliation. It's being preserved. Locked down so it can't be sacrificed to fund bad decisions or impulsive spending. For the first time, the future of Coyote Pass is being decided by someone who actually understands stewardship instead of control. This is the legacy shield. The children were always the collateral damage in Kody's war for dominance. Promises were made to them and broken just as easily. Futures were dangled and then delayed until they meant nothing. By securing the debt, Janelle didn't just outmaneuver Kody. She kept her word to her kids. She ensured that whatever happens next, the land won't vanish into another shopping spree or ego-driven purchase. It will still exist, intact, accounted for, protected, and that may be the most unforgivable part for Kody. Not the loss of power, but the exposure. The realization that someone else stepped in and did the job he failed to do as a father and provider. The realization that respect can't be demanded. It has to be earned. And once lost, it can't be forced back into existence through legal threats or financial freezes. Inside Robyn's house, the mood has reportedly shifted from confidence to calculation. Security feels temporary now. Conversations that once ended with reassurance now end with silence.